Alright, hi guys. Today I'm going to see if I can explain how it is that I go about practicing IFR approaches. So today we're sitting here at the Murfreesboro Airport, Middle Tennessee, and we're in the Beach Bonanza A36TC model, and we've already done the run-up. Everything's good to go, and we're just going to depart and climb to an initial altitude of 5,500 feet to start with. And I'm just going to randomly pick some airports and fly some approaches to them. Before I do that, I need to first explain something that I do on Navigraph. So Navigraph now has VFR sectional charts. If you don't have Navigraph, you'll have to find a way to get the information that you need. I don't use Navigraph too much. I actually use an app on my phone for all this information. It's just a lot more convenient for me. But for the purposes of showing you guys what I'm doing, I've had to learn Navigraph pretty good. Just how to navigate everything. The one thing that I need to show you is obviously outside it's great VFR conditions, but whether it was VFR conditions or not doesn't matter. You could still do this. Obviously you'd want to make sure you knew where the icing levels were, and if you got Navigraphs you can do that pretty easily. Just turn the weather on, and when it comes up you can go down here and click on this, and you can go to the radar. You can see precipitation that's out there. This is live, and you can scroll back the time here and see, you know, the general direction of things. You got all kinds of information with this, but you can also click on the icing levels, which they had lost that for a little while, and I read on that a little bit, but they've got it back. And when you click on the icing levels, you can check where the icing levels are at these flight levels. I have it at 6,000. We're probably not going to go any higher than that, so we're good. There's no icing in this area right now anyways. There's not hardly a cloud in the sight. So what's important about the VFR chart is these big numbers that you see. 15, 21, 18, you know, 18 here. So what you're looking at, if you're not aware, each one of these numbers is in what's called a quadrant on the VFR sectional chart, and they're in these lines of longitude and latitude. Lines of latitude run east and west, so this would be a line of latitude. Here's another one. Longitude runs north and south, unless I've gotten that backwards. Sometimes I get that backwards. It's been a long time since I've actually laid down a VFR chart and planned a VFR course, but that should be correct. In each one of these squares, if you will, you'll find this big number, and these numbers represent this 15 or 15 represents 1,500. There's another 1,500. This is 2,100, 1,800. So what do I use that for? This is, now I've got to remember, darn it. This is the maximum elevation figure for each quadrant. And what that's telling you is this is the maximum elevated terrain figure within each quadrant, and it also includes any obstruction like towers or smokestacks or anything like that. So as long as you're above these altitudes within each quadrant, you're not going to fly into anything. In fact, you're probably going to be well above these altitudes. So as you're flying, if you can't see out the window, use these wherever you're at. Now I don't have SimLink running right now, so it's not showing me sitting here at the Murfreesboro Airport. But as you fly through these, just stay above these altitudes. If you're at or below these altitudes, you could potentially fly into something. And there's all kinds of airports out here. I have a general idea of what direction I want to fly in to practice some approaches, and I'm just going to go through and kind of explain to you what I'm doing to be able to do that. So we're just going to fly initially towards the south and climb to 5,500, and then we'll just randomly pick us an airport. The entire area is VFR, so it doesn't really matter. With that being said, let's get in the air. We get our pitot heat on, strobe lights, mixtures full rich, parking brake off. Flaps to approach, or the first setting for takeoff. Our trim's already set. Entering the runway, we'll turn our landing lights on. Make sure our taxi lights are off.
1623, contact tower 120.95. Have a good day. Over tower 1623, good day, sir.
And I'll stop right here and I'll do one more check just to make sure everything's where I need it to be. I need to make sure the AC pump is off, fan blower's on low. And everything looks good. Bring the power up. Rotate at about 80 knots. Bring the power up slow. This aircraft is turbocharged. You can overboost it on the ground with aggressive throttle movements. There we go. The winds are light. Down here at the ground anyways. Airspeed's live. Everything's in the green. No cautions, no warnings. Winds from the right. Up to 80 knots. We'll rotate. Tap the brakes, go gear up, above 80 knots, go flaps up. I'll go ahead and bring up the flight director. There's a 1,000-foot climb, so I'll go in, I'll hit vertical speed mode on the autopilot and heading mode. And I'm hand flying, but I'm following the flight director. And we're at max continuous power right now, so we'll go ahead and pull the prop back to about 2,500 RPM. That'll help with engine cooling. And we can pull the power back, throttle back just a little bit. And we're going to trim the ailerons. You got a little bit of left turning tendency here, or left banking. No rudder trim in the Bonanza. Try to get everything trimmed out here. Alright. That's pretty good. Now I'll engage the autopilot. Betty, that's her name. We'll confirm that. Autopilot is engaged. Autopilot's flying. And we may need the heater, or the heat, so we'll turn the vent blower on, turn the AC blower off, and we'll open up the cabin heat just a little bit. Alright, so while the aircraft is in an en route climb to 5,500 feet, it's been pre-selected already, we can take a look at the map, and let's see where we would like to fly and approach. So just to our south is Shelbyville. So let's just search Shelbyville. So SYI, so Sierra Yankee India.
We're at 210 Delta.
It's within the 48 contiguous states, so it's going to start with the Kilo, Sierra Yankee India. So that's Shelbyville. And we're just going to look at the airport details. Look at the weather first. Get an altimeter setting. Well, let's see what procedures they have first. So they got all kinds here. So let's look at the weather. We'll get 29 or 89 put in our altimeter, which we're not far from there, so it's probably already it's off just a little bit. Put it in our standby. We'll go back up here. And the winds are generally from the southwest. So we're probably, let's just see what runways they have. So we go to airport information, runways. So Navigraph does a good job of just kind of telling you what runway would be the preferred runway for the wind. So it looks like 18, which we're going directly at it. So just to get away from it, I'm going to go ahead and turn left so that we can fly and approach to runway 18. I'll go ahead and close the cowl flaps here. Coming up to 5,500 feet. Off our left wingtip, you can see Murfreesboro out there. It's a beautiful day in Tennessee right now. This is the live weather. We're leveling off. Let's pull the power back. It's about 22 inches of manifold pressure. And we'll pull the prop RPM back to, now that we've accelerated a bit, pull it back to about 2,400 RPMs. Right in there. And we really don't need to mess with the mixture. I'll lean it just a touch. There we go. Just a touch. And we'll go ahead and... Oh, it's getting quite cool in here. Big blower on. We'll open that heat up a little bit more. Uncomfortably cool. Alright, so back to the approach. Let's look at the procedures. So right now we've made a left turn. We're flying out this way. What should we do? Well, I think a lot of you would be really interested in like the RNAV runway 18. So let's just overlay that, and we'll see what we got here. So the minimum safe altitude is 3,300 feet within 20. That I believe that should mean 25 nautical miles of runway 18. Here's our final approach course and our final approach fix in the altitude to intercept. This is a WAS or an LPV approach. 1670 to 718 and it says that the LPV decision altitude is conditional. So we need to check that. Airport elevation is 801 feet. Touchdown zone is 800 feet. Use local altimeter setting if not received. Use Telehoma altimeter setting. DME. DME RMP 23 not authorized. Barrow VNAV not authorized when using Telehoma altimeter settings. That doesn't apply to us. For uncompensated Barrow VNAV systems, LNAV VNAV not authorized below 16 degrees Celsius or 47 degrees C. VGSI and RNAV glide path not coincide. BDP not authorized when using Telehoma altimeter setting. Pilot controlled lighting on 122.8. Okay, so we don't have to worry about any of that. We have the local altimeter setting. And if you're not sure what DME, RMP, 0.3 not authorized, that's a dual DME required navigation performance. So that doesn't apply to us. And we'll go ahead and brief some of this other stuff. Missed approach will be climb straight ahead to 3,000 direct to this fix. I try not to pronounce these because I butcher them. And our minimum decision altitude is 1,050 feet. We're in category B. We could be in category A or B with this aircraft, but we'll be less than 120 knots nonetheless, and we need 3/4 of a mile visibility. At the decision altitude of 1,050, that puts us 250 feet above the ground. That's what that's telling you. And since we're going to be east of the airport, we'll start the approach at the initial approach fix, IAF, right here. And don't pay no attention to that. We're not on a Victor airway. And there's no procedural turn if you start the approach at this initial approach fix. If you were to come in from a different angle and go direct to the initial approach fix here, make that your initial approach fix, you would have to perform a procedural turn and fly back. And that would also be your intermediate fix, or IF fix. So this fix is actually both the intermediate fix and initial approach fix if you don't join the approach at either one of these. That doesn't matter. So let's load that, the GPS. I presume we probably need to turn back towards the north. I don't know how far away we're getting here. So let's go over to the GPS. And this, what I have found, for VNAV to work properly, if you're going to use VNAV, you need to put in a departure airport and a destination airport. So I'm just going to put in Kilo Mike Bravo Tango, which is Murfreesboro. And I'm going to also enter Shelbyville. So that's going to be Kilo Sierra Yankee India. Orban Phil. Alright, let's look at the procedures. We'll select an approach, and we're going to do the RNAV runway. Is that what we got pulled up? RNAV GPS runway 18. So if you have a Zulu, RNAV Zulu, well, I won't get into that. Let's just do the RNAV 18 here. And where were we going to join the approach? Right there. And I'm in heading mode with the autopilot, so let's just, we'll go ahead and activate this. And we'll see where we're at in relationship. Okay, so it's going to be off to our left. Now the altitude we're going to be looking for is 3,000 feet from this initial approach fix over to the now intermediate fix. So we need to be at 3,000 feet along this course of 271. No procedural turn. It's 11.6 nautical miles. So the intermediate fix right here is going to be in the side profile view right here. And we need to be at 3,000 feet as we join it. So I don't need to be at 3,000 feet here. I need to be at 3,000 feet here, so that I can then step down to 2,500 for the final approach fix, which will be right here. And that says it at the top right here. That's the final approach fix intercept altitude. So we need to make sure our GPS is in GPS mode. Put both of them in. I want to get my final approach course of 180, put in nav 2. Man, I'm going to spin that all the way around. Make sure the 430 is in GPS mode as well, which I just said that. This will be my backup in case the HSI nav 1 fails. So go ahead and put 180 in. And the decision altitude of 1,050 feet puts you 250 feet above the ground, so we'll put that in our radar altitude, or radio altimeter, the same thing. Okay, now I'm going to do a direct to function to the initial approach fix, and we'll put the autopilot in nav mode. And it will start a turn. Here comes nav mode. It's going to start a turn. It's telling me I'm 13.2 nautical miles away, but I want to be at 3,000 at the intermediate fix right here. So let's put that in the VNAV. Whoops. So 3,000 feet. And I do not want to be at 3,000 feet 4 nautical miles before. I want to arrive at that. There it is. I want to arrive at that fix at 3,000 feet. So I'll punch that in, and I would like to descend at roughly 1,000 feet per minute. We should be far enough away for that to work out pretty well. Yep. So VNAV is now telling us that we will need to start a descent in approximately 7 minutes. So we'll go ahead and pre-select 3,000 feet. And we can stop looking at that. I have the vertical speed required up here in the top left.
So 1670, turn right heading 250, we'll just do the 100. 250 heading.
I'm going to bug my heading over. And I'm just going to go ahead and put my HSI at 180, which is the final approach course.
2533, descend and maintain 5,000. 5,000, right, 2533.
Landing lights are on. We need to swap fuel tanks.
So 1670,
So we'll turn the auxiliary fuel pump on low. We'll swap from the left over to the right. Turn the auxiliary fuel pump off. And we'll increase our speed. Go up to about 27 inches on the manifold pressure.
1670, right heading 310, clear vision approach, 34 left. 310 heading, join visual 34 left,
I don't see a cloud. Do y'all? Take an external.
You're following a Delta 737, that's your 3 o'clock in 3.5 miles at 4,000. That's at 2533 we're looking.
Now once we intercept the glide slope and we get at least 300 feet below the intercept altitude of 2,500, we will reset our pre-selected altitude to 3,000, which is the missed approach altitude. I don't know why, but in the black square, I don't know what it is. The go-around mode does not work anymore, and hasn't for quite some time. Generally speaking, if you were to hit the go-around mode, the flight director would pitch up to about 10 degrees, and you wouldn't have to actually cancel the flight director. But for now, you actually have to just cancel the autopilot, disconnect it, and cancel the flight director and kind of start over. All right, we're looking at about a 500 foot per minute descent now. And I'll tell you what, we'll go ahead and go into vertical speed mode. We're going to pick up some ground speed in the descent, so we'll go ahead and go into vertical speed mode, and we'll start descending at about 500 feet per minute here. And since we're now in the descent, we'll go ahead and go with the mixture full rich. We'll leave the prop right where it's at. Getting ready to make our turn, so we'll bug our heading over. Nice smooth air, so we're up in the yellow arc. Turn right to a heading of 275, so we'll bug our heading to 275.
Approach cover 5546, we're on time 190. We need to slow down.
There we go.
5546, you can reduce speed, contact tower 120.95.
We'll increase our rate of descent.
537, speed 170 to 5 DME, contact tower 120.95. 75 DME, good day, Alaska, 567. Delta 1670, contact tower 120.95. Delta 1670.
If y'all heard that, that was my phone. That was not in the cockpit. So we're going to get down to 3,000 feet just a little bit early here, which is fine. We just can't go below 3,000 feet. And our next step down altitude will be 2,500 feet. And we'll have 6 nautical miles to complete that. And when we make our turn, we'll get the indication on the GPS that WAS is enabled and we're in approach mode, and you'll see LPV here. Technically, the way they want you to fly these is to manually step down to 2,500, not simply engage approach mode and intercept the glide slope if it's up where you're at, because they don't always coincide from the final approach fix back to the intermediate fix or initial approach fix, depending on what this would be.
2533. Delta 2680, traffic to the parallel, 2 o'clock and 4 miles of dash 8, 4,700. 7 Delta 2680. Delta 2680, right heading 310, maintain visual separation.
All right, we're about 5 nautical miles from our turn, so we'll go ahead and start pulling the power back and get ready to slow down. And we'll only pull the power back to about 15 inches. Don't want to shock cool the engine. And the autopilot is intercepting 3,000 feet.
438, right heading 310, turn 1534 left. 310, join local left, 34 left.
So it's intercepted now. Let's pre-select 2,500. And we'll go ahead and bug our heading over to our final approach course. Bring our power back up a bit now that we've slowed down. And it's getting quite warm in here.
26 Heavy out of 13-4, 17 RMAN.
American 26 Heavy, SoCal approach, reduce speed is 250 now, and comply with the rest of the speeds on the arrival. Expect the ILS runway 24 left approach.
Don't have knots, comply with the rest of the speed, 24 left approach, 26 Heavy.
American 26 Heavy, descend via the Ironman 1 arrival as published.
Keeps beeping because the autopilot is trying to tell me that we're within 1,000 feet of the next pre-selected altitude. Actually, we're within 500 feet of it. The altitude is fluctuating up and down a little bit, so. All right, here comes our turn. Now we can start down. We're going to vertical speed mode. We'll descend at about 500 feet per minute. Pull the power back for the descent.
325 to join the final, and we'll join the speed mode right now.
And now we're in approach mode. LPV, and here's a glide slope indication. on the HSI and NAV2 OBS VOR receiver. But we want to get down to 2,500 and get established, and then we will configure for landing at that point.
Southwest 5498. Southwest 5498, thank you. One more turn to phone. Turn number 1. Roger.
All right, we're leveling off at 2,500.
3.85. Good day. Time off 210 knots.
We're below 154 knots.
Frequency is 123.85. 235. That was 10 frequency.
So 154 knots is gear speed and first notch of flaps speed.
325 for the visual. 35 right. Southwest 5498.
So as soon as we need to arm the approach, I haven't done that yet, so let's put the autopilot in approach mode, and now we're waiting for it to intercept the glide slope, and when it couples, you'll see that displayed up here. And as soon as it does that, we're going to go gear down, first notch of flaps, and pull the power back. We need to be at gear speed as we cross over. All right, it's coupled, so gear down, first notch of flaps, pull the power back just a touch. Now's a good time to do a GUMPS check, so that would be gas. We are on the fullest tank, undercarriage, gear is down, and indicating 3 green, which means it's locked. Mixture's full rich, and propeller. We'll go ahead and increase the propeller to only about 2,500 just for engine cooling purposes. We won't go all the way just yet. And the S in GUMPS would be your switches. So everything's on in its proper position that I need it. Go ahead and reduce the heat. Again, may need the AC on the ground. It's kind of warm. And now we're looking for our minimum criteria, which is going to be 1,050 feet, and we need to reset our pre-selected altitude to 3,000 for our missed approach altitude. So speed checks, we're in the white arc, which is full flap setting, so let's go full flaps. We're coming up on 1,050, which is our minimum altitude.
Yes, 2802 heavy, 8,000, turn right.
Bring the power up to about 21 inches.
Right, 60 down to 8,000.
And the last thing I do, usually just before approaching, as I'm approaching minimums, is prop goes full forward. So the prop is now full forward. A little wind buffeting. Looking for about 85 to 90 knots here. Comes minimums, and you can see the radar altitude is at 250 feet. There's minimums. Disconnect the autopilot, get rid of the flight director, and hand fly it the rest of the way in. Now, if we didn't see the runway or the airport environment, we would have had to go around excuse me, and follow the missed approach procedure. Slowly pulling the power back and trimming as necessary. Wind is from the right. All right, power to idle. Take that crab out with the rudder. A little bit of right aileron. And there's the main wheels, nose wheel, I'll retract the flaps. I know there's a lot of pilots that say don't do that. You might retract the landing gear by accident. Sorry guys, get a little itch in my throat. Could be COVID. And we'll pull the yoke all the way back. We'll brake hard for this exit. And we'll get the cowl flaps. Try not to run off the runway doing it. Well, off the taxiway. Clear the runway with landing lights off, taxi lights on, strobes off, pitot heat off, transponder to standby. Bring the prop RPMs up to about 1,000. And we're going to go ahead and shut the vent blower off.
Just leveling 10, 10,000, 1,000.
Swiss 35049, we'll approach, expect 17 left.
17 left.
I have no idea where I'm going. I'm just going. We're going to suspend that. We'll go to flight plan, menu, and we will delete that. So yeah, you could repeat that over and over and over. Just do a touch and go here at the airport and hop right back up into the air and do another approach, or fly to a different airport. I need to lean to make sure I didn't do that. Get spark plug fouling.
200 to intercept.
Where can we park? Oh, it looks like those guys are calling me over there. We don't need the radios, so we'll get them off, or the avionics for that matter. Flaps are up. Reset the trim as well. Oh, I'm overshooting. Trim is reset. It's telling me to come left. Come left. I'm coming left. Man, how far left? All right. Come straight and stop. There we go. Set the parking brake. Throttle to idle. Mixture to cutoff. Make sure the prop stops. Put the propeller back. We'll turn our lights off, all but the beacon. And we'll go with alternator, battery off, and the ignition switch to off. And that's it. I don't know if that helped anyone or not, but give it a go. Thanks, guys.